In a recent video, I explored the Battle of Susteren on the 17th of January 1945, and my own grandfather's experiences of that battle. Since releasing that video, I've been able to read into the first 5th Queen's war diaries further, and have unravelled a small mystery concerning a PIAT and a military medal. As always, hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. Within the various reports and oral histories of the battle, a Private Howard is mentioned multiple times for his prowess with a PIAT. The commanding officer of D Company on the day, Major John Edward Evans, said this about the man's exploits.
We suddenly realised that in this village, this small town, we had 3 German tanks who were waiting for the dawn. They were useless at night. They immediately proceeded to knock down all the corner houses on top of the troops. We had a Private Howard who, with a PIAT, which was our only anti-tank weapon, very heavy thing that one carried. He knocked the track off one, for which he was later decorated.
An after-action report taken from the Queen's War Diary from February 1945 goes into even more detail. One of D Company's men managed to disable one Mark III tank with his PIAT and got 2 rounds into the turret of the tank, killing all of the crew, before another supporting tank blew it out of his hands. Private Herbert Edward Howard's medal-winning action was also depicted in a sketch seen in the London Illustrated. His PIAT was the sole anti-tank weapon available to the Queens on the day of the battle. A squadron of tanks from 1st RTR and a section of 6-pounder guns had meant to go into the attack but had been unable to due to the bad weather. The use of the PIAT was further explained in the after-action report of weapons in the defence following the Queen's experiences of fighting within the Ruhr Triangle in February of 1945. It reads, PIAT, attack roll. Keep in mobile reserve except in close country and houses. Its short range makes its sighting very important, and it should primarily be used in woods, villages or defilades through which tanks are likely to pass.
The PIAT anti-tank projector, British hard-hitting secret weapon which has been in use for about a year, is demonstrated for Army cameramen. Designed to penetrate and stop any German tank at over 100 yards, it fires a bomb with accurate and deadly effect. They spell it PIAT and pronounce it success.
I'll now hand over to my friend Matthew Moss from the Armourer's Bench and author of Osprey's book on the PIAT, who will give us a brief history of this often misrepresented weapon.
As tank armour increased, it became clear that the British Army's platoon anti-tank weapon, the Boy's anti-tank rifle, was obsolete. A new infantry anti-tank weapon was needed, and in 1943, the PIAT, or Projector Infantry Anti-Tank, was introduced. A curious weapon, which is often misunderstood, the PIAT is actually a spigot mortar, not a rocket launcher or recoilless rifle. The round is fired off a rod or spigot, with a hefty spring taking up the recoil and working the weapon's action. When the trigger was pulled, a propellant charge inside the bomb was ignited, and the bomb was pushed off the spigot downrange towards its target. As it fired, the spring compressed, soaking up the recoil, and in theory recocking the weapon for the next shot. This spring is often thought to be what throws the bomb, but it isn't. It's propellant gases expanding between the bomb and the spigot, which launches the projectile. The PIAT had an effective range when firing directly against vehicles and structures of just over 100 yards, but it could also be fired indirectly, like a mortar, a feature that both British and Commonwealth soldiers found very useful. The PIAT fires a high explosive shape charge, designed to penetrate over 4 inches of armour. And in theory, if you hit the target in the right place, the PIAT could knock out any enemy armoured vehicle. While the PIAT was heavy, difficult to cock, and a handful if not used properly, it also had a number of advantages over its contemporaries like the bazooka. It was fast firing, with 5 rounds a minute possible, with a trained 2-man team. Its design also meant no backblast, and none of the telltale smoke and flame of its American or German counterparts. Like all infantry anti-tank weapons of the period, the PIAT required skill and bravery, and no fewer than 6 Victoria Crosses were won by men using the PIAT, along with thousands of other men like Private Howard who were awarded other medals for bravery.
For more historical firearms and in-depth weapons videos, please head over to the Armourer's Bench once this video ends. His channel is a treasure trove for firearms fans. Now, let's get back to January of 1945. Despite gathering all this new information on the medal recipient, I was still unable to find the official medal citation for Howard. But thanks to Andy Murray, one of my Twitter followers, we can now read the full citation of Howard's actions on that fateful day. On the 18th of January 1945, 1st 5th Battalion, the Queen's Royal Regiment, attacked and captured the town of Susteren. Very soon after capturing the town, the enemy staged a very strong counterattack, which included 6 tanks and infantry, and completely overrun 2 platoons of the Right Forward Company. At this time, the battalion was entirely without armoured support and had to rely upon PIATs and small arms to beat off the enemy attacks. Private Howard was firing a PIAT from the window of a house when it was attacked by 3 tanks firing shells and machine guns. He calmly stood his ground until the tanks were within 20 yards and then fired 2 bombs at the leading tank, scoring direct hits and setting it on fire. 2 other tanks, supported by infantry, came to its rescue and brought heavy fire to bear all around Private Howard, who was still firing his PIAT. 1 shell burst on the PIAT itself, completely destroying it. But Private Howard was unhurt, and he immediately seized his rifle and began firing at the slits in the tanks, and picking off the enemy infantry as they advanced. As you can see on the citation written on the 24th of January 1945, it appears that the initial award recommended for Private Howard was a Distinguished Conduct Medal, at the time the British Army's second highest award for bravery, but it would seem that 2nd Army Commander Lieutenant General Miles Dempsey himself bumped the award down to a no less than deserved military medal. One can only speculate on the reasons for the change of the award, but one thing is for certain: the immense bravery of Private Herbert Edward Howard and his PIAT. Thanks for watching. To learn more about the battle, you can watch my previous video on it here, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and stay tuned for more military history.